Hello, parents and students. I hope you all are doing well today. So today's lesson, I'm going to cover subtracting decimals. If you watch the adding decimals lesson, it really is not that much different. The only thing we're doing now is we are focusing on subtraction. So let's go to our next one, or our next slide, I should say. Next slide is the steps for subtracting decimals. First step, we're going to write down the numbers one under the other with the decimal points lined up, just like we did with adding decimals. Step two is we're going to put in the zero so the numbers have the same length. If you watch the adding decimals video, it's the same thing. And then step three is where we differ. And then since we are subtracting decimals, instead of adding like the last video, we will be subtracting this time. So I'm going to change so I can actually write these problems out. It'll be a lot easier. So give me 1 second. If you can see the GIF on the screen, remember you can do this. Trust me, if I can teach this, so you guys can do this too. So I do have our steps up here. So we're going to go and get started with our first example. It's 5 and 28 hundredths minus 1 and 76 hundredths. So my first step is going to make sure I write down the numbers with the decimal points lined up. So let's go ahead and do that. Subtraction minus 176. So you can see here I have my decimal points lined up. All right. So now step two is add zeros if need be, so they have the same length. Do these have the same length? I believe so, because there's 3 digits in the top, 3 digits on the bottom. And then step three is we're going to subtract. So 8 minus 6 is 2. 2 minus 7, can't do it because there's more on the top than on the bottom. So if there's more on the floor, you go next door. Go to my 5, that becomes a 4. My 2 changes to a 12. Now I can do 12 minus 7, which is 5. Bring my decimal point down because I have my decimal there and my decimal there. So that's where I want my decimal to go. 4 minus 1, 3. So when I do 5 and 28 hundredths minus 1 and 76 hundredths, I get 3 and 52 hundredths. Our next one's going to be a little bit tricky, so I'm going to end up pausing the video. For you, it won't be paused, but I'm going to pause the video, erase my board, and then we'll get back to getting started. All right, so our next example is going to be 12 and 31 hundredths minus 2 and 485 thousandths. It's number 2 on this screen. So I know that the second number, 2 and 485 thousandths, has more digits, but still 12 and 31 hundredths is the bigger number. So that's the one that we're going to put on top. So I have just now done step one. I made sure that my decimal points are lined up. Decimal, decimal. And so step two is add the zeros if need be. So I see that I have a space here and a space here. I'm going to definitely add my zero there. And then here, like I said, for adding decimals, you do not have to add a zero, but it makes life easier. So I'm going to go ahead and do it. 0. So, and then we just basically subtract. 0 minus 5, can't do it. So I go to my hundredths place, make that a 0. This now becomes 10. 10 minus 5, 5. 0 minus 8, can't do that either. So now I'm going next door to the tenths place. That becomes a 2. This 0 becomes 10. 10 minus 8, 2. 2 minus 4. Can I do that? Absolutely not. So I go to my ones place. That becomes a 1. My 2 now becomes a 12. 12 minus 4. I haven't done that in a while. 8. Bring my decimal down because I have my decimals there, so it needs to be right here. 1 minus 2. Can I do that? Absolutely not. So I go next door to the tens place. That becomes 0. My 1 becomes 11. What is 11 minus 2? 9. So when I do 12 and 31 hundredths minus 2 and 485 thousandths, my answer is 9 and 825 thousandths. Now for our last example, it's 32 and 588 thousandths minus 12 and 57 hundredths. All right. So we're going to go ahead and do step one, make sure my decimals line up. So 32, 588 thousandths minus 12 and 57 hundredths. So are my decimal points lined up? Yes, they are. So step one is complete. Step two, I'm going to add the zeros if need be. Do I need any zeros? Yep, because I see that there's nothing under this 8 right here. So I'm going to go ahead and put my 0. And then step three, we subtract. So 8 minus 0, 8. 8 minus 7, 1. 5 minus 5, 0. Bring the decimal point right there. Make sure I have that right there. 2 minus 2, 0. 3 minus 1, 2. So my answer would be 20 and 18 thousandths. And that, boys and girls, and adults, sorry, is how you subtract decimals. If you have any questions, please email me. You can text me or you can Blooms me as well. Hope you all have a good rest of the day.